Thank you all for watching. Right now we're live on Facebook, Periscope, YouTube, and UnivisionNoticias.com. Senator Bernie Sanders, thanks so much for talking to us.
My pleasure.
So you want to be the next president of the United States. What have you learned in the last 4 years?
Well, I've learned that in the last 2 years, we have the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country, a man who is a pathological liar, who is a racist, a sexist, a homophobe, a xenophobe, a man who uniquely among modern American presidents is trying to divide this country up rather than bring us together. And as president, I would do exactly the opposite. I think what we need to do is to bring our people together around an agenda that works for working families and not just the 1%.
You've said that we have a president who is a racist. How is Trump a racist?
Well, Trump is a racist when, even before he was president, he led the so-called birther movement, trying to deny that Barack Obama was a legitimate president. He is a racist when he suggests that people who come from Mexico over the border are rapists and criminals. He is a racist when he keeps demonizing undocumented people in this country. He is a racist when he picks on Muslims and attacks them as well. That's what racism is about.
Now, among potential candidates, polls generally put you in second place, Senator, after Vice President Joe Biden. But to be anti-Trump, you know, is not enough because everybody running is going to be anti-Trump. So what's going to be your main message?
Yeah. Okay, Jorge, here is the main message. I am very proud. You know, you asked me about the 2016 campaign, and I am very proud that the ideas that we fought for in 2016, which just a few years ago were thought to be radical and extreme, are now part of the mainstream of this country, are supported by a majority of the American people, and in fact by many Democratic candidates for office. So we have come a long way in making it clear that health care is a right, not a privilege, that if you have a job in America and you work 40 hours a week, you should not live in poverty, that we've got to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We have come a long way in making it clear that young people in this country should be able to afford to go to college by making public colleges and universities tuition free. That's an idea that has also been widely accepted. Our fight against climate change and the impact that has on this country and the world is also increasingly understood by the American people.
So let me clarify, Senator. President Trump said that America will never be a socialist country. You're a democratic socialist. So that means supporting Medicare for all and free college for all?
I guess he thinks that if the United States does what working people want to see it done, and that is the working people of this country want the wealthiest people and the billionaire class and large corporations to start paying their fair share of taxes. The American people support the concept of health care being a right of all people. The American people want to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. The American people want to make public colleges and universities tuition free. If Trump thinks that's socialism, well, I got some bad news for him, because countries all over the world are doing that. Socialism, to me, Jorge, means that we have a government that listens to the needs of working people, not just wealthy campaign contributors. And all of the ideas that we are fighting for are widely supported by the American people.
Let me ask you on another idea. Do you think that millionaires and billionaires should pay up to 70% in income tax?
I don't have. What I do believe is we have introduced legislation on an estate tax. Trump wants to do away with the estate tax, which benefits the top 0.2%, giving them a huge tax breaks. We substantially increase taxes on that group of people, as we should. During my campaign for president, we talked about and formulated ideas about substantially raising income tax for the wealthiest people in this country who are doing very, very well right now. We have 3 people in America who own more wealth than the bottom half of the country. 46% of all new income goes to the top 1%. So if your question is, do I think that the people on top have got to pay more in taxes? The answer is absolutely yes. We will be formulating some specific positions on that, but in general, the answer is absolutely yes.
Now, let me ask you about the wall. As you know, President Trump wants to build a wall at the border with Mexico. However, you know very well that Democrats in the past, they voted for walls right at the border. So why Democrats did it and President Trump should not?
Well, what I think we need is strong border security. And I think if you want to do it in a cost-effective way, you don't build a wall. You invest in technology, you invest in manpower, you may invest in some wired fencing. But I do not think it is a cost-effective approach, if we're talking about border security, to build the hundreds of miles of walls at a cost of billions of dollars that Trump wants to spend.
You've criticized President Trump. Now, this is what he said about you. He said the following: personally, I think he missed his time. He's talking about you. He was not treated with respect by Hillary Clinton. So my question, Senator, is do you feel that you were mistreated by Hillary Clinton and by the Democratic Party in 2016?
Well, I think the evidence is pretty overwhelming that, the Democratic National Committee was partial towards Secretary Clinton. But that was in 2016, and we're running now in 2020. And what Donald Trump says is of no relevance to me. We are going to put together, Jorge, in this campaign, the strongest grassroots movement in a campaign that this country has ever seen. I hope that within a couple of weeks, we will be able to announce that we have 1 million people in every state in this country, in Puerto Rico and elsewhere, who are prepared to stand up to create a government and an economy that works for everybody and not just the few.
Virginia, Vermont, you know very well, is a state with one of the lowest percentages of minorities. Your presidential campaign in 2016 struggled to get the African American and the Latino vote. Other than talking to us, which, by the way, I really appreciate, what are you planning to do to get more African Americans and Latinos to vote for you?
Well, actually, Jorge, that is not quite correct.
Okay.
Sometimes mythology continues even though it's not correct. The truth is that by the end of the campaign, we were getting a very significant percentage of the African American vote. And among young people, people under 35, we were winning the African American vote, the Latino vote, the Asian American vote, the Native American vote. We were winning the Latino vote. We were doing extremely well among young people. We were not doing so well among older people, and we're going to focus on that. We are now in the process of putting together a campaign and some great people who are going to help us reach out to every community in this country. And by the way, I think right now, if you look at some of the recent polls, you mentioned a poll earlier on, check out that poll and you'll find us, I think, winning, being in first place among the Latino vote. I think we have a lot of support among Latinos, and we're going to do everything we can to increase that support.
Before you go, I want to ask you about Venezuela. Do you consider Juan Guaidó the legitimate president of Venezuela?
No, I think what has to happen right now, I think there are serious questions about the recent election. There are many people who feel it was a fraudulent election. And I think the United States has got to work with the international community to make sure that there is a free and fair election in Venezuela.
So is Nicolás Maduro a dictator, Senator, for you? And should he go?
All right, I think clearly he has been very, very abusive. That is a decision of the Venezuelan people. So I think, Jorge, there's got to be a free and fair election. But what must not happen is that the United States must not use military force and intervene again, as it has done in the past in Latin America, whether it was, as you recall, whether it was Chile or Brazil or the Dominican Republic or Guatemala. The United States has a very bad record of intervening in Latin American countries. That must not happen again. The future of Venezuela must be left to the Venezuelan people.
And one final question. It was reported that you got at least $1 million in donations in the first 4 hours since you announced. So is this race going to be decided by money again?
No, no. Look, unfortunately, in the world that we live in, the political world that we live in, it takes a lot of money to run a presidential campaign. That's just the fact. But for me, what's more important than money is the kind of grassroots activism that we can mobilize in this campaign. And I think all over this country, in all of our communities, you're seeing people sick and tired of a grotesque level of income and wealth inequality, of the fact that we're the only major country not to guarantee health care to all people, that we have so many people working for starvation wages. People want real change. And I look forward to them joining our campaign so that we not only win the Democratic nomination, not only win the general election, but we put together a mobilization which says to the very powerful special interest in this country that we are going to fight for justice in this nation, and we're going to create a decent standard of living for all of our people.
Senador Sanders, gracias. Thanks so much for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator, and I hope to see you soon in person. Thanks again.